Hello everybody. In last class we discussed regarding green building, that too global warming part, right. So, what is global warming? Why global warming nowadays important to study, and it is very much essential, especially for constructing buildings or especially in the field of construction technology. After that we discussed regarding embodied energy systems. So, each material has some sort of energy inside. It might be starting from its manufacturing or starting from the extraction, then during the process, during the manufacturing, during the treatment, during transportation, and after transporting to certain industries, still there are some kind of activities which are get involved in that particular material. So, all these energy in turn consists of embodied energy. That part we discussed in detail, how the energy efficient building we are supposed to be constructed, especially for the present scenario, that part we discussed in detail. Then coming to the next important aspect, that is life cycle cost of a building. So, in every construction practice, we need to study about life cycle cost. So, in short, we can also call this as life cycle cost analysis. In the upcoming stage, once we understand what is this life cycle cost of the building, then we are supposed to start with how to analyze the cost or life cycle cost of the building. The name itself says, here we need to observe some more parameters inside this whole agenda, that is life cycle cost of the building. Of course, as we all know, buildings nowadays, buildings are one of the predominant structures or infrastructural activities which are required for every sectors, whether it is institutional buildings or institutional sectors or residential, commercial, industrial. So, buildings are nowadays essential. Then once we come across buildings, then the next concept is how to analyze the life cycle cost. The term life cycle, here we need to understand the terminology called life cycle. So, throughout the entire life of that building or throughout the entire life of that particular structure, it consists of some cost. It must bear some costs, yes or no. So, basically this life cycle cost in turn divided into 5 groups. One is initial cost, as we all know, initial cost. So, initial cost, the name itself says initial. For example, if you are supposed to start with any project, it might be buildings, it might be a road project, it might be a dam, it might be huge skyscrapers or tall structures, multi-story buildings or minor projects, major projects. So, always we need to come across what would be the initial cost. Initial cost is nothing but it might be preparation. During the preparation we are supposed to come across some cost effectiveness. So, all the costs related to that particular projects. So, that is initial cost. Some, for example, if you are planning to construct a residential building of 2 BHK, that is 2 bedroom or a hall, kitchen, that is residential building, then initially we are supposed to start with the planning. We need to start occupying, we need to finalize the boundaries, then we need to fix up some land stones, or we need to mark we need to fix some stones over there as a boundaries, then we need to mark it out. So, these are the boundaries. So, within that we are supposed to give some setbacks, yes or no? Then we need to approach certain engineer or architect to prepare the plan, elevation, what would be the cross sectional details, what would be the front view, side views, etc., etc. Then we need to approach a structural engineer to do the structural design of all the components starting from foundations to superstructure, yes or no. So, it all consists of one or the other way cost. Cost should be bear before going to start with the project. Before commencement of the project, you are supposed to start with initial cost. Then the second one is service cost. Then the second most important bit in this is service cost. So, the name itself says service. So, during the service, during the execution part or during the flow of that particular structure, if building is an example, so during its service, during its continuity at the time of construction, once the construction starts, so it's a service related issues get begins. Yes or no? So, that entire thing comes under service cost. Once again, if building is an example, so in buildings we come across once the planning, approval, everything is done, then we have started with earthwork excavation. Yes or no? So, during its process, initial cost is the one which is concentrated before going to start with any project. For example, preparation, preliminary preparations which are all required for commencement of any project, that is comes under initial cost, whereas the service cost is nothing but during its process, during its construction processes. So, that sum of the cost, it might be in terms of money, in terms of inventory management systems, in terms of materials we are supposed to supply, that those materials also once again end up with a cost only, because money will play a major role in that particular stage. Yes or no? So, during its a service, so during its a service also, this building will come across certain service cost. That is the second most important bit, service cost in that whole life cycle cost or life cycle cost analysis of buildings. Then the third is maintenance cost. And the third most important, maintenance cost. So, the name itself says maintenance. So, you are supposed to maintain, the building or any structure. For this maintenance, you are supposed to come across certain monetary type of things. For example, once again building we have taken as an example. So, initial cost I have completed with initial cost, procurement of materials and all these things done. Then service cost during the preparation, during its construction activities, during starting from the earthwork excavation or mark outing of those column positions to the opening ceremony of that entire building, it comes under service cost during its service, during its manufacturing process, during its construction processes, that is comes under secondary case a service cost. Then maintenance, to have that maintenance cost, one of the major thing is maintenance cost will play a major role in infrastructures, especially in road projects as well as irrigation projects, even some extent of railway projects. Then structural parameters like buildings, institutional buildings, commercial buildings or multi-story buildings or shopping malls, we can consider all these types of structures. Then maintenance will going to play one of the major role, because we need to maintain, to have that whole building to give the proper service, yes or no. So, we need to bear some of the maintenance cost. For example, we have arranged with if that building is something kind something like shopping mall type of thing. So, you are supposed to have that maintenance cells, yes or no. We need to maintain that whole building in terms of cleanliness, in terms of housekeeping department, in terms of what you can say assistance department, so that in terms of building related issues, if plumbing problems come into picture, we are supposed to check it out, what about the leakages, any leakages are there, or electrical department, they will look out any electrical damages takes place, any such issues happens within the building during its service. So, all these things are to be maintained by a concerned authority. So, that department maintenance cell in turn involve some kind of cost. That is also one of the main important bit in life cycle cost analysis of the building, called preventive maintenance cost. Some of them are preventive, even maintenance, some mega projects they have maintenance cost in terms of preventive maintenance. Some kind of projects they have adopted some regular interval basis of preventive maintenance. Some of them they involve maintenance in the way of if any materials or any such structure get collapse or at the verge of collapse, so they also supposed to start with maintenance. So maintenance once again divided into so many parameters, depends upon the nature of work, depends upon the type of structure we are dealing with, because some component of the buildings or some component of the structures demands additional materials required to maintain. Yes or no? So those are all the things to be observed during maintenance cost. Then the next one is operating cost. Then the fourth important thing is operating cost. The name itself says operating. During its operation, maintenance, and one of the main things we are supposed to concentrate here is operating cost and maintenance cost, whether they are same or whether they are running in the same direction or whether they are overlapping with the same or not. Yes or no? By broad sense, of course, they are seems to be same, but in a particular project, in specific, they are not remain same. So maintenance is a one. For example, if you are dealing with equipments, huge equipments or some tools and plants, so we are supposed to operating cost is a one which is come at the time of operation, during its running period, that is operating cost. Yes, so during its smooth conduction, operation is very much essential. During its operation, we are supposed to concentrate the amount of fuel required for that we are supposed to bear the cost. Then during its operation, we need to find the operator who is going to operate it. So whether it is that person is technically sound or not. Yes or no? Non-technical hand or technical hand, yes, or technical hand, whether you are supposed to give some training to that person. So for all these things, we are supposed to invest some money during its operation. Yes or no? But at the same time, maintenance is nothing but to make that equipment or instrument in a proper condition. We are supposed to have some maintenance cell. Yes or no? So we need to clean that material in a regular interval. Yes or no? So all these things under contingencies comes under maintenance cell. Whereas operating, the name itself says operating cost during its operation. So vehicle is the best example for that. When we can code all this life cycle cost analysis for building, that is remains the same as life cycle cost analysis of a machine. For example, if you start with the initial cost, yes, I am planning to buy a bulldozer or road roller for my highway project, I am supposed to start with the initial cost. Yes or no? So initially, what would be the amount which is required for that particular material or particular equipment? Initial cost. Then service, during it's a service, because we are supposed to pay some service related issues, whether it's headed by state government, central government, local bodies. Yes or no? So all these things, during it's a service, I am supposed to bear some of the money, I need to invest some money. Then maintenance, for the smooth conduction of that equipment, for the smooth going of that equipment, we are supposed to have a maintenance cost. Then operating, for the smooth operation of that particular equipment, we have to invest some money in terms of operating cost. The same thing we can apply on any structures, whether it's an infrastructure of huge in nature or a small minor projects. For example, construction of a gutters on our side drains, that also consists of all these parameters. Throughout the entire life cycle, what are all the possible amount we are supposed to invest on a project is treated as life cycle cost analysis of the buildings. But here we are concentrating more on buildings apart from regular structures. Even for machineries, of course, these LCC concept will remain same, that is life cycle cost analysis will remain same for machines, for equipments, tools and plants. Even for inventory management systems also, these LCC analysis is one of the essential parts. Then soon after the operating cost, the fifth and the last thing is disposal cost. The last important thing is disposal cost. Disposal or dismantling, or you can apply in any manner. Okay, dismantling or disposal, because once the equipment provided or equipment serves the life cycle, the life or the duration of that particular days or years or months assigned for that particular machine. So after that, soon after that, we are supposed to dispose it. Yes or no? So if any materials are, any materials or minute particles are available in that whole equipment, so that we can recycle it. Yes or no? If some materials, they might be in the form of reuse or recycling type of things. So some materials we may not use it for the next stage. Yes or no? So we need to bifurcate it. We need to separate it out and we need to dispose them. For dispose or for dismantling or for demolition, even if you consider building, demolition is one of the main concepts. So for demolition also it consists of certain cost. Yes or no? Right? So for example, even building also, I can take an example. Even if you, for the clear understanding of this concept, that is LCC, life cycle cost analysis of the building, or life cycle cost analysis, equipment is one of the most important or predominant sector, I can say, because while purchasing equipments, we are supposed to start with initial cost, we are supposed to start with the service cost, service related issues we are come across during the manufacturing or during the purchase of that equipment or heavy, huge tools and plants. Then maintenance cost for proper conduction, for proper life cycle or proper durability related issues, maintenance is one of the main important sector. Then soon after that, we are supposed to start with the operating systems or operating cost. For the smooth operating systems or operation, we are supposed to invest some monies on them. So that is operating. Then soon after that, once the machine is of course become a scrap, then we need to dispose it. So that also involved some disposal cost or dismantling cost. If building is an example, once again initial cost is a basic or which is one of the starting point of any project, I can say. Yes or no? So starting initial cost, then we are come across service cost, then maintenance for the smooth conduction of this buildings, maintenance is very much essential. Then during its operation, yes or no, during its operation we are supposed to have regular or irregular interval observations to be made, and that is also one of the cost consuming parameter that also comes under operating systems. And later on, if that building serves around 80 years, 100 years, depends upon the longevity of that structure, if we need to demolish it, so that we need to come across demolition cost. So these are all the points to be considered in life cycle cost of building. If we are analyzing, see, this is a simple form LCC, that is life cycle cost, LCC, and at the same time in further we are supposed to start with LCCA. The next important step after this LCC, life cycle cost of the building, we are supposed to start with life cycle cost analysis of the buildings. Yes or no? So these are all the possible costs we are supposed to be investigate before going to start with any particular activity, but at the same time to analyze all these things. So what are the possible operating costs I need to decide for that particular structure. For example, if I am planning to construct a residential building. So before commencement of the project or before the project taken into considerations, being a civil engineer or being an engineer, we are supposed to know all these major 5 parameters. So what would be the cost at initial stage I am supposed to bear? That also we should be in mind, not exact amount or at least abstract cost. What would be the abstract cost of that building? I should have that clarity, because that is the role of every civil engineer. Yes or no? Then at the same time, service related cost, any service related issues if come across, then what would be the arrangement for them? That also I should know before handovering it to the next level. That service cost we should know tentative at least. Then maintenance, what are the possible maintenance? For example, if I am supposed to plan with purchasing of a new bike, yes or no? So I will think of all these parameters, yes or no? Initial cost I will supposed to think, then what would be the maintenance, operating, disposal, everything I need to think at the initial stage, at least abstract, in an abstract level, not exact, at least estimated cost I am supposed to plan. Yes or no? Whether that capacity, I have that capacity to maintain it or not, whether I have that capacity to operating it or not. So everything should be keep it in mind before going to start with purchase of any such things. Similarly, in buildings also, initial, service, then maintenance, operating cost. What are all the possible operating systems? What would be the maintenance? For example, if I am doing for the innermost wall surface, let us say thermal proof walls I am supposed to construct. Then you are supposed to plan at its initial stage that because initial cost you have invested towards the thermal proofing material. Okay, that is one part. Yes, we have certain money, we have invested, fine. But what about after 1 year? We are supposed to maintain it. For the proper functioning of that particular concept, we are supposed to maintain it. For that maintenance, we are supposed to invest some money as a maintenance cost. And for the proper operation, yes or no, it requires some certain improvements at a regular interval. It requires some checks at regular intervals. Yes or no, if any freezing and thawing effect takes place, yes or no, if any undulations takes place, or if any high intervening of that surfaces takes place, then we have to check. For that we are supposed to bear some operating cost. Yes or no, and finally at later stage, if you are supposed to dispose it, yes or no, so you should have that disposal cost also. So how to dispose it? So what would be the dismantling processes? So how I can demolish it? So everything we should come to know before taking any particular project, whether it's a small projects or big projects or mega projects, whether it's related to highway projects or dam structures or hydraulics related issues, irrigation structures. Yes or no? Or we can start with purchasing of a small equipments, even purchasing of small mobile phones also. These 5 parameters we are supposed to be concentrated, or we are supposed to be have in our mind what would be the initial cost, service cost, maintenance, operating, after disposal, what would be the resale value, everything we should have some kind of planning. So that process we can call it as life cycle cost analysis. Here we are completely concentrating on buildings. That is why life cycle cost analysis of building we are supposed to be concentrated in detail. Okay. So in next session we will discuss about what all the other cost cuttings are there in initial, then operating, maintenance, then dismantling, etc., and how to cut shorten those costs. That part we will discuss in upcoming sessions. Thank you.